Hi there, I'm Linda and this is Huttons Valley Permaculture. It's nearing the end of summer here and the garden is looking amazing. I've got vibrant flowers everywhere. I've got tomatoes ripening, I've got pumpkins deepening in beautiful orange colour. There's beans actually finishing off and drying up, but I've also got some younger plants that I've recently started, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at those, giving them a bit of love. But then we're also going to be visiting the kitchen garden where I've got some production happening there too. Hopefully we'll get some raspberries, but definitely we've got an apple tree that needs harvesting. We're going to start today in this garden bed here, which is one of the gardens that I actually prepared and planted out in my week of work in the garden, which was back in January. It's the end of February now and we've had quite a bit of growth. The snow peas are looking good and they've just started to flower. They might just need a little bit of help to go up the trellis, although they are going quite well. The other thing we're going to do today is remove the covers from the cabbages and see how we've gone with keeping the white cabbage moth out, and it also probably needs some weeding. Over the other side, I did plant out some celery, which is getting a little bit buried with various plants over there, so we're going to be having a look at that as well. We also need to deal with an issue of some weedy plants in the garden path. There's a lot of borage there. There's some brassicas and also some tomatoes, so we're going to be dealing with that and reclaiming our paths as well. Now it's still quite warm here and there's still lots of white butterflies around, but I'm finding the plants are reaching the top of this netting, so I need to give them some space. I will have to just monitor for the little caterpillars from here on in, and I might be able to spray with that BT spray that I mentioned in one of my recent videos. So let's have a look here at what's going on. So with uncovering them certainly reveals that they were getting a little pushed down with that cover that I had over them, and they also look like they do need a bit more of a water. So I'm going to weed this garden bed and then I might give them a bit of a soaking. And I think we left some eggs in under the mesh, or there was room enough for the white butterflies to get in. So I'll be having a look for more of those and just pulling them off. Yeah. But at least these plants are now a little bit bigger, so they're not going to be devoured overnight as young seedlings can be. You've got a bit more chance to find those nasty little green caterpillars and do something about them before you lose all your plants. First things first though is to get these covers out of the way. So having a closer look at these plants, they look pretty good. I am just going to be removing some of these weeds today before they kind of get going. If the weeds are small enough, it's easy at this stage just to get a sickle or something similar just to disturb the top layer of your compost, and those little roots weaken, and on warm days like we've got at the moment, all of that weed will die very quickly. And I just kind of mound up my compost just to keep the plant a little bit upright. I did plant some turnip seeds, some of which were successful before the birds disturbed everything else, and a couple of daikon radish seems to have survived as well. Oh, I just spotted another little caterpillar. Even though you do your best to cover these plants over, you do find some of those determined butterflies get in and lay their eggs. Last month, in January, I did plant some beetroot seeds, a lot of which the birds just dug up, but we have managed to grow some here. And I also threw in lots of brassica seeds, but it's too thick in there. I've since planted these cabbages, so there's a cabbage here and another cabbage here. So with those beetroot there, I think I'm just going to remove these other brassica plants and get them out of the mix here so everything's got a bit more space. And it reveals some more weeds as well. So I'll get those all out. And yeah, that's a bit more space there. There's another weed. So those plants should have plenty more room now. Yeah, there's some snow peas that grew in the wrong spot, so I'll get rid of those as well. And it just kind of keeps this bed a bit more manageable, really. So that's just a few minutes to reveal these lovely little cabbages. I will be watering them at the end of the day when it's a bit cooler, and that should bring them to life. But I'll certainly be monitoring these plants and keeping those caterpillars free from them. Now we just need to remove all of this from the garden path. I don't know if you saw the video in which I prepared and planted out this bed and also the one next to it. I was worried about removing some borage plants, but as you can see, borage actually volunteers very readily. I've got heaps of plants just here, heaps of plants happening all over the place, so there's definitely no shortage of borage around the place. So I'm going to get these plants out and try and maintain my gardens. There's also more snow peas in the path. Again, that's just from birds kicking the seeds around. Might keep that for a bit of salad for later. And another thing that's good to keep on top of is, of course, this running grass, which I did get on top of fairly well back in January, but you have to keep vigilant and get them removed at that stage rather than taking over a whole garden bed. Something that's pretty evident with digging into this garden path is how much moisture there still is in here. I haven't done a lot of watering this year, and it's been quite dry lately, so it just shows what a wood chip path next to your garden beds can do. It just helps retain all the moisture in the system. And I'll also just chop out some of this seeding Swiss chard and make sure there's no grasses hiding under there too. It's these sneaky grasses that are hiding in the shadows that have kind of got on top of me before. Nice and clear. Now we've got to work on the other side where there's more weeds and borage and some hiding celery plants. Some tomato plants we don't need. And these are the paspalum that get really out of control if you leave them. So you need them out, roots and all. Getting there. Over this side of the garden, I planted, well, originally I planted seeds, but the birds got to those. So then I came through and planted some celery plants. Now, the celery plants are getting a little bit buried in here. Here's one here that you can see. And it's getting buried by some borage plants that have decided to grow over the top of it. There's a few weeds here. And also, if I can hold back these snow peas a little bit, it might just give this plant the chance it needs. So sickle's a good one to get in here and kind of just get out plants like this. You can kind of be quite specific with the plant that you want to take out. These borage plants really take off and create a plant that produces beautiful purple flowers, and the bees love it, but it's huge and can take over gardens. So I'll just get the rest of these little weeds out and redirect some snow peas. Now the sun in the afternoon comes from this direction, so these plants get a bit of afternoon sun, but they are quite shaded in the morning, which it is right now. We've got a bit of a collapse of snow peas here on this side. try and untangle them from each other and very carefully feed them through this trellis. It doesn't always go to plan. But I do find I can work them up there enough so they don't completely die, and it gets them off these other little plants that we want to nurture. Just a few minutes of work and we've got a happy bed of celery plants. The other bed that I planted quite recently with brassicas is this bed here. Now, I don't think it's ready to completely take off the covers yet, but I thought I'd just have a bit of a look at it and see how those little caterpillars are going and make sure they're not devastating any of these plants. Now, I'll just kind of lift that back a little bit. Now, these were planted sort of about a month after the other. You can see there's signs of something getting in there and getting this one, but there's no little green caterpillars on there, so that's good. We have had quite a dry spell since I planted these, and I think they just haven't had enough moisture to kind of really kick into life at this point. And let's sneak a look under this one at the end. And there's still a few carrots left in this bed, which I'll move off. Now, there is signs with one of them that some bugs have been getting to it. That one looks like it's been got to. That one there looks a bit dehydrated, actually. Now, I did spray these, but the spray mightn't have got all the little caterpillars, so that's why we're kind of having a bit of a check today. So let's sneak a look under this end. A few holy plants. Some of the seeds that I've planted have come up, but again, I think I needed to water this a little bit more just to get them going. So judging by some of these plants, they do need a bit more of a spray, although I can't really see the caterpillars at this point. You can see there's some little mustard plants coming up there, quite a few in that little bunch. Those plants are doing okay. So what I'll have to do with this lot is just come in, spray again, but keep on with the water a lot more. I'll quickly get this down before this butterfly jumps in here. So what I'm finding with the warm days, most of my garden is quite happy, and it's just little seedlings like this that tend to need the water. Now, I'm not always great at getting out here and watering sufficiently, but this, by checking on your little plants every so often, it kind of is a reminder that you need to be doing things like that. One of my areas of this garden, I haven't watered at all, and that's around my compost path. Those plants are quite happy. There's lots of moisture sunk into that part, and it's really been successful this year. Next on the list of things to do today is just take a look at my raspberry plants. It has kicked into production and I've been getting quite a few raspberries from the plants. The blueberries, which are under this netting as well, have just about finished, and I've got bags of blueberries in the freezer. So I'm still continuing with the raspberries. So let's get this off and see what's happening here today. I have mostly been just sort of diving in and under to get my berries this season, which actually worked out quite well. But for filming, that doesn't help at all. Okay. So you can see these plants have been squashed down a bit by the netting, but it's not seeming to affect their production at all. You do have to kind of go looking for it. There's a couple more hiding down there. But these canes have been quite productive, and there's still some production to come. Like the blueberries, I'm just gathering these up and popping them in the freezer. This is the blueberry plants, which are in next to the raspberries. As you can see, they're sort of finishing up now. There's a few spots with some blueberries still there, but most of the production has certainly passed, and it's really finishing off now. We'll just collect what we can here. Now over the other side of the raspberry patch. And we've got some more. So there's my harvest for the day, nearly a full jar of raspberries, which will head to the freezer. I usually get sort of about that every few days at the moment, and it will continue for a little while yet. So certainly enough to fill up the freezer with lots of berries. Something I wanted to mention today is just the raspberries and the blueberries being in together. I wasn't sure about it when I saw the raspberries all coming up through the blueberries, but I just let it happen. And what I found is this net that's over the whole area is a lot easier to manage than individual netting, which I had for my blueberries last year. That seemed to hold the plants down and really not allow for great growth. But in this situation, because the raspberry canes are higher than the blueberry plants, they're holding the netting off the blueberries. So the blueberry plants are growing well, and the canes just died back anyway, and it doesn't seem to have stopped them growing. So together, it's been actually really good. Now that we've got our raspberries all harvested, we're going to be looking at this apple tree. Now I do have another apple over the back there, which is my Crips Pink, but usually that isn't ready for harvest until April. So we're going to have a look at this beautiful Johnna Gold apple, which has got huge apples on it at the moment, and they're definitely ready to harvest. I've been gathering lots of big ones off the ground that seem to drop each day. So I think it's the time to get all the apples off the tree. Oh, here's some more little apples that have dropped off. Some of them aren't too great, but I don't mind chopping those up and sharing those ones with the chickens. Bit of pruning going on there. What a beautiful tree. I wish I could leave that net off all the time, but the apples would not even get to this stage. I've got rosellas and different wild birds here that would come along and eat them as just tiny little fruit, and they'd get nowhere near the size of these beautiful apples. Now this year I didn't even really thin this tree. They just kind of dropped off in December, and the rest of them have grown quite large. Now there's a pile of fruit down here already. That was from the other day when I collected some fallen fruit from under this tree. So that pile is definitely the chickens' pile. There's a few other fruits that have dropped since I collected it the other day, but they might have been knocked off just now with the netting. All right, let's get to picking and getting the earwigs off them. How'd you go, mate? Oh, did you see him jump off? There is a bit of damage on some of this fruit, and I've just had earwigs fall off from some of them, so who knows, that might just be earwig damage. Now this tree is about 7 years old, or 8 years old. It has only been in the ground here for 5 years. I did have it in a pot for 2 years before I moved here, and all I've done is plant it with some compost and then added wood chip under it each year just to top up the garden. I might sometimes just mulch some of the weeds and the plants around and put it under it as well. But as for any specific soil treatments, I certainly haven't done any of that. One full basket already, and it feels like I have just started in on this little tree. Now this tree isn't all that high, it's probably 2.5 meters high, but it's certainly produced plenty of fruit, and I definitely don't need any more than this each year. Oh. All right, harvest done. Now there is quite a bit of fruit that I will collect and feed to my chickens. Most of it I think is affected with earwigs actually. Some have just been hanging around on the ground for too long, and that's that one. What a fantastic harvest. Now I've already been making some apple chips with honey, cinnamon, lemon juice and just dehydrating those in the dehydrator. And most of this bounty will be going to family and friends. I'll be catching up with a few people on the weekend, and it's going to just bring me joy to be able to share these beautiful apples. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thanks so much for watching, and bye for now.